Thank you for listening to the Cosmetics Business Podcast. For early access to episodes, exclusive beauty news stories, analysis, trend reports, and award-winning magazines, subscribe to cosmeticsbusiness.com. That's cosmeticsbusiness.com.
Hello and welcome to the Cosmetics Business Podcast, a monthly roundup of the biggest stories, trends and talking points in beauty. Coming to you from our London Bridge studio, my name is Sarah Parsons and I'm sitting here with fellow cosmetics business journalists
Wray,
Alessandro Carrara.
And in today's episode, we're also joined by Akash Mehta, co-founder of haircare brand Fable Maine. Welcome, Akash.
Thank you guys for having me.
And in today's episode, we're going beyond the headlines to take on the biggest stories of the past month. From what a TikTok ban in the US could mean for brands, the wellness industry's mission to optimize sleep, and why athletes are beauty's next big superstars. And make sure to stay to the end where we reveal our favourite new beauty launches this month. So no particular order. Julia, shall we get started with TikTok?
Happy to begin. Yeah, as mentioned, this is about the divest or die ultimatum to TikTok's owners, which was recently issued by the US government. So a bit of backstory here. The US government, it's long been concerned that TikTok's parent company called ByteDance, which is headquartered in Beijing, is controlled by the Chinese government. So the director of the FBI, no less, has said that the Chinese state can influence people by manipulating the algorithm that curates what people view on TikTok, as well as giving the government the opportunity to potentially collect user data for espionage operations. So all pretty serious stuff. And this legislation has been in the pipeworks since about last March, and it was kind of something of a knee-jerk reaction to the whole Chinese spy balloon debacle. I don't know if you guys remember that from 2023.
Yeah.
But fast forward a year, and on the 24th of April, the US Senate voted to approve this bill banning US app stores from carrying TikTok. So the bill is now in the hands of US President Joe Biden, who has previously backed the legislation, so he's a big fan of this, and he's now set to officially sign it into law. So what this does is it kind of starts the gun on an apparently 9-month timeline for ByteDance to divest TikTok or essentially become obsolete. So TikTok obviously is livid. It's called the law unconstitutional and has said it will challenge the bill in court. This could potentially extend the proposed timeline, that 9 months, or even result in the ban being dumped entirely. TikTok believes the legislation, if it comes into effect, would impact 7 million businesses. The word it uses is devastate 7 million businesses. And among these, of course, could be beauty firms. So what I want to throw into the ring for this month's conversation is, how worried do you think beauty brands should be about this situation?
I would say incredibly worried. I think the bigger businesses will pivot. They'll find wherever the communities of TikTok are flocking to. So Instagram and Snap and all the other platforms will just ramp up their versions of TikTok. Everyone is trying to replicate that TikTok's addictable algorithm. And
YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're all going to go on there. But there is just something about TikTok that no other platform can replicate yet. But it's really those smaller brands that are going to suffer, the ones who have really impacted. I'm talking like those homegrown kitchen table kind of brands who haven't made it yet, perhaps haven't got that first round of funding to boost their advertising spend, to boost that social media spend, because it is very expensive. So I would say that.
It honestly just takes that one video to put you on the map. It can be just that, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll also say, luckily, for Fable and Maine, TikTok has been a big part of our growth. It was the first, I think, 3 months into the brand, we went viral and we sold out at Sephora and .com. And that kind of did put us in the map, not only from consumer lens, but also from the retail lens. Because when you have a moment like that where you sell out, they're like, whoa, your SKU is in the top 3 and this and that. They put you on their map. So 100%, there's no doubting the importance of TikTok for any size business. However, always I kind of devil advocates every kind of opportunity into kind of a triumph. And I think this should be a moment for brands to realize they shouldn't be so heavily dependent on one channel. This is more for the brands that have multiple distribution points, and less for the smaller homegrown brands. But I think, we're also seeing, with or without the TikTok ban, the effectiveness of TikTok is certainly declining. The platforms are promoting more kind of consumer content and like non-brand or TikTok shop kind of content, right? So I'm not finding our influencer content that's paid effective anymore because it's just not reaching anyone without sparking the content. So we're even internally looking at diversifying out of TikTok and going to other channels, but also other platforms or retail distribution channels, like even going within investing in sampling or in-store or brick and mortar. So I would say whether this ban happens or not, as a business, start to already pivot, because I think we all need to stop being dependent on a singular platform.
Do you, with your strategy, do you look at when it comes to short form content, do you look at Reels as well as TikTok and how each performs?
100%. I mean, I think it's less about, I think we can owe it to like TikTok, Instagram Reels. They've all just changed the perception of people's kind of attention spans. We live in an ephemeral world. Our attention spans have moved from probably like 10 seconds to 3 seconds and in declining as I even say these words. So, and probably anyone listening is probably already doing 100 other things at the same time. So I would just say like we have to cater to the landscape today. So even now, like we're filming this week some education content, and my team were like, oh, like no point filming, it's gonna be a big production and it's gonna be expensive. It's like, no. Like I'm just thinking iPhone, quick edit, 3-second education videos that we will send to our field staff or beauty advisors because that's what they want to see. So it can be easy. It could be that simple content that's quick. So I think you can do this in all different kind of verticals. I will say there is an importance of also ensuring that you're giving value and information. So, I think about like kids today. I think it's important to say, no, everything can be quick. Take your time, slow down. So we have to also be accountable to not feel the fire of this kind of low attention span industry we live in. So it's a balance. But if I say today what's most effective, of course, it's the 3-second videos.
I think also like ethically, the ban of TikTok in the US could be quite a good thing in terms of like rampant consumerism, like the need to have to launch products all of the time because something's gone viral, or there's a viral makeup trend and suddenly you need to launch like a whole new makeup palette about it just because it was whatever Italian girl or strawberry girl or whatever it is. Whereas like focusing on slower, carefully considered formulations that hopefully going to be that next iconic product that will last a long time.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to shake things up, as you say, to put not put all your eggs in that one basket with regards to marketing. And yeah, I do agree that potentially we have gone down this route whereby we know that something is digested easily, so we have fed people that and refed them that, and you do end up having this vicious cycle a little bit. So potentially that's not a bad thing either. But what I found really interesting about this whole scenario is that, for example, the authorities, so Mark Warner, for example, is Democratic chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. His comments to kind of placate people that might be upset about this move is that many Americans, particularly young Americans, are rightfully skeptical. And you just kind of go, well, it's not all about the children, it's about businesses. There are a lot, and it's almost like the people that are making these laws haven't really thought about any impacts beyond, oh no, the kiddos might be a bit upset. Which to me seems a little bit shocking.
Yeah, it's just some kids dancing in front of a shower or something stupid like that, rather than all the people spending lots of money on it. Yeah,
and I completely agree what you're saying about, diversify a little bit, try hand at a couple of different things, maybe go back to basics a little bit. However, for a very small brand, for an indie brand, for example, TikTok might be the way that you get most of your sales in the US. If, for example, in the BBC, you had one brand founder of Pearl Cosmetics, which is an indie brand, saying that this could really, totally undermine her business because TikTok is how she gets most of her US sales. So you're getting people coming forward going, oh, this is really going to impact me. If I only have the marketing budget or the time or the team to focus on one thing, and it's been TikTok for 4 years, how are we going to turn that around?
There is a smidge of hypocrisy here as well. Just because a couple of weeks ago, lawmakers voted to reauthorize Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, which is a measure that allows for the warrantless surveillance of Americans. All of this is going
on. So
on.
it's okay if we do it, your benevolent, loving government, but not if another government does it.
So, yeah, it's a controversial law. So it's meant to allow for far-reaching monitoring of foreign communications, But it has also led to the collection of US citizens' messages and phone calls. So, the thing I'm thinking is that, how do they not realize that pretty much a majority of businesses in America use TikTok in some way? These businesses that fuel and run the economy. And I don't know. I think it's a strange move.
In terms of privacy and data, though, I honestly think people don't care enough on a day-to-day basis. Like, how often do you really read the terms and conditions before you? Yeah,
I think it is something, though, that people are questioning more and more. They just don't know because it's done so secretly. Or even I just recently had a viral video, right? And so many big viral channels, I'm talking the Unilads and the big ones, they asked to submit the video to then get reposted. And it's such a simple platform. And I'm now so trained by my team to just think legal, check everything with T's and C's. And I thought, well, actually, let me just say I accept that, I accept that quick little button at the end before I press submit. I just read that and it's scary. It's they own everything. I can't even send it. Technically, I couldn't have even submitted it to another channel because they now own that video rights for me accepting that and posting it. Wow. So I literally realized if people actually read the T's and C's, it is scary. So I do think it is healthy to protect us when something does go wrong, because the minute that does backfire, people are left helpless. And I think there is an importance to know where we're putting our kind of data. However, I think we have to morally, justify everything and balance, as you said. If this is someone's business, who's to say they're saying, look, I'm happy to give my data away to keep my business afloat. Yeah. Right? Where is that power? Where is that communication happening?
Absolutely. And I think it's also it's the content creators that brands rely on so much now in terms of that community that I think will be impacted more than anyone. Yeah. And for this podcast, I was looking at other countries that have already banned TikTok, and India banned TikTok in 2020. Yeah. And so following that ban, a whole flurry of locally created TikTok equivalents launched, but Facebook and YouTube and everyone else, they just ramped up their algorithms, and the local startup didn't stand a chance. But that really, in a community or in a country like India and US and every community around the world where perhaps not mainstream media people, they were able to find a voice in a community and a platform and get work and brand deals and so on and so forth. And they just haven't been able to replicate that success since its ban. And I think that we're going to see an echo of that in the US for sure.
100%.
What I think is interesting about the India ban was that it happened, am I right in thinking it was about sort of 2020-ish? Yeah, but that was really for me when TikTok went massive during lockdown. I think beforehand, I think it was launched, was it 2016? So between that time, I have to admit, I wasn't really that aware of it. And during lockdown, I was like, what's this thing all these children are using? Which seems to be where the Senate is at the moment. But how it's grown since then and what a tool it's become since then for this industry and many others. In India's case, it has, that kind of viral video marketing has progressed without TikTok being a part of it. In America, it's about putting the genie back in the bottle. What are they going to do instead? And what I'd find interesting is, would you, for example, change your video content, the way you do that for things like Reels and Shorts and all these other alternatives? Or do you pretty much follow a similar process to TikTok?
Similar process. I mean, to be honest, I actually find our videos for a brand, because it's different from a creator, from a brand, and I'm talking about a business professional brand that often you switch, a small business might stay personal account because you get the trending sounds and you get more in the algorithm. Yep. So if I want a verified badge and stuff like that and sparking my ads, I got to switch the account type, and therefore I know my content is not going to get seen by more people because they're just not being promoted. So I actually, as a company, we shoot kind of TikTok style content, but we mainly think about and actually physically post it first on Instagram Reels and then on TikTok. So it's interesting, actually, our strategy is more IG Reels, because I know our community we've built, they're more likely to see that content because the way the platform works is you see the people you follow or the brands you follow. Whereas on TikTok, it's more a For You page algorithm, and not many people go to the friends as much as we think. So actually, from a business perspective, it's more we're going to be hurt majority, not from our own brand accounts, at our other kind of business level I'm talking, but more by the creators not posting about our products. Because that's our main reason why we go on, is to build that community, talk to them, build that kind of connection, comment on their posts. That's going to be a big hit, I think, for sure. But in terms of the video style, I think we are, I also post it on YouTube Shorts and everything. So we're kind of always going to stick to that same type of content. Now, the source of that inspiration does come from TikTok. The type of videos, the type of sounds, the type of aesthetics, you kind of copy that from a TikTok trend and then you take it on all the other channels. I don't see that coming from Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, right? So that's going to be interesting to see. Where does innovation in social content come from in the future if TikTok is banned?
Because Instagram still has that stereotype of being very aesthetically perfect and beautiful.
And the platform itself doesn't lend itself to create content in the actual app. It's more of you take it outside and you put it in. TikTok, you can shoot those, the filters and everything. It's so much more in-house. So that's where the trends come more organically.
People think that, do you know Flip app?
I don't know.
So Flip is...
Enlighten us.
So Flip is a shopping app.
Yeah, it's like live shopping.
Yeah, live shopping. It's TikTok style format, predominantly beauty. A lot of influencers have gone on there, like Hiram Yarbrough, Addison Wray, so they've all gone on there, and it's like, shopping influencer TikTok style. But it's this idea that anyone can be an influencer, so they're trying to promote that. So it's not very well known right now, but they're expecting that to take over.
Do you think that was slightly inspired by TikTok Shop, or was it around before?
100%.
I think a lot of these apps have been inspired by elements of
yeah.
TikTok or all the main platforms, and then they have to find a way to cut through. And then a lot of them have moments like Clubhouse stuff that have a moment of success and then drop off. There's also I see like Lemon.
Oh yeah.
Is it called Lemon?
Lemon
8 or something. Lemon. Yeah, there's a few different apps that are starting to pick up. One thing I think we always, and we haven't even mentioned it once on here, is maybe it's a time for Snapchat to rise again.
Yes.
You know what? It was so...
Or Snap, I should say.
Absolutely. We had in the office somebody who came in for apparently it's an official mother-daughter day and bring your daughter to work day, which was rather lovely. And she was 13 and she was telling us that Snap is what all her friends use, is what all the Gen Alpha or elder Gen Alpha are using. So absolutely, I can see that having a real resurgence, as it were.
Yeah.
And by geography, like in Middle East, it's probably the biggest app still, Snap, especially in Saudi. And a lot of my friends still, but they're also creators will like it because you get monetized for posting. So if you post a set of stories, you'll get paid. So I think it's a really big opportunity for creators, maybe at the millennial level or the Gen Z later, to go back into Snap, because I don't know, a lot of creators I know have deleted the app and haven't gone back on. But I think this could be a moment as well to explore that.
Most likely. And also, the mother that Julia is referring to, why she allows her daughter to use it is because she's more comfortable with the privacy settings of Snap versus TikTok. Absolutely. And so that soothes a lot of minds as well. On to the next story. So I'm going to talk about sleep. So I've been reading some recent articles and it's basically saying how sleep is the new status symbol and that the wellness industry is tapping into that. So things like pillow sprays, eye masks and silk pillowcases that, they've been the mainstay in beauty retailers for a long time now, but it's getting more savvy. John Lewis, for example, they now offer sleep consultations. So it's definitely in the mainstream. For sure. So they walk you through, not for example, like what type of bed you need and what sheets you need, but they also walk you through products and tech gadgets to help you get a better night's sleep. Samsung has just unveiled its sleep ring. So it's a rival to the Aura sleep ring, which is basically a piece of jewelry that acts as a sleep tracker. And oh, you've got one on.
I have one.
Do they work?
They work really well. Yeah. I love them.
I'm quite tempted to get one, but I know I'll be quite addicted to it.
Well, we can talk about, I'll let you finish the intro, but there's a whole thing about sleep we'll get into. Yeah.
Cool. So Gwyneth Paltrow, Jennifer Aniston, Prince Harry and Akash Mehta use one. But why? So lots of studies have come out recently about sleep. We're all obsessed with sleep. In the US, studies have said that less than half of people are getting enough sleep. Some research have said that 2 nights of broken sleep makes you feel older. In the UK, there's a study done of about 500,000 people, and they found that people living in upmarket locations were more likely to get the recommended sleep of 7 to 9 hours per night. They're also less likely to snore, wake during the night, struggle to get up in the morning, and need to sleep in the daytime. Interestingly, this comes on to Sleep Ring. Most Googled question related to sleep is how can I fall asleep faster? So this idea of efficiency, which I thought was fascinating.
It feels like that's almost antithetical to sleep. It's you just must hurry to get to sleep and rest. Must hurry to rest.
Exactly. But it felt like this in-demand nature of like delivery, next day Amazon, same day Amazon, like I need to sleep now.
It's this quick ephemeral, I want to, watch something quickly. I want to sleep quickly.
Yeah.
Not necessarily sleep shorter, but just not waste that time, I guess, people.
Not basically not have that half an hour where you're sort of drifting and you could go to sleep or you could wake up.
True. But I guess also like if you travel a lot for work, that sleep is so important if you're on a plane or...
I think in general, it's just so important. And I think, I spent after university, I was in engineering, so you can imagine sleep was not really on the cards in that degree. But I will say and I used to, I remember someone said, and it was like my mantra for so long, it was like, we'll sleep when we're dead. And I was like, yes. And then I was like going around the whole like industry as in my young 20s being like, I can function a 4 hour sleep. Actually, I read somewhere like, it's better, I function better with less sleep. I'm one of the few percentage. It's all rubbish. Like
you
it's
can
just
say
me.
that when you're in your 20s,
yeah,
right?
It's true.
But it's so important to get, yes, you don't have to, it can be quite a big range, right? 6 to 9, 6 to 10, however you think of it. But and it seems like 7 to 8 is like a good amount. But I do value, especially as we get older, I do value sleep, but for so many reasons, right? And I think there is things that we need to think about, which is why the trend is increasing of how do we, because I think we all want that, but we don't do it.
Yeah.
So how do we build a lifestyle around it, whether it's with our products, routine, discipline, structure, that allows us to have the most efficient, best sleep?
For sure.
Because that leads to scientifically proven a healthier, happier life.
And more research is going into it as like sleep in terms of gender as well. Like, do women need more sleep, especially in certain times in the month as well? But also interestingly, I think for the first time ever, Gen Z, new generation, is not nightclub revelers. It's this stereotype that keeps coming up over and over again is that Gen Z are in bed by 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So if they're in bed by such a short amount of time, okay, they might be doom scrolling, but they'll be spending a lot of time within that surrounding. So, okay, what products can we sell to them essentially that fits that environment?
I think there's definitely a premiumization of the sleep aids environment within beauty. Obviously, when it comes to the physical products, you have bubble baths, you have the pillow sprays, you have all of these nice things to help you drift off to sleep. But we are seeing on the ingredient side this slew of active cosmetic ingredients. So relatively expensive ingredients, which are designed to help you either to sleep better or to give you the effects of having slept better, because obviously a lack of sleep has really disastrous impacts on your skin, on the way you look. And, you have things, so Lucas Meyer Cosmetics has something called Immunite. What this does is really interesting, actually. It targets the improvement of sleep, the quality of sleep via the inhalation of olfactory compounds. So this is not a scent, it's not a smell. You can't notice you're inhaling it, but these compounds are nevertheless having a beneficial effect. You have Mabel Ice Awake, and this rejuvenates skin that appears aged due to a lifestyle featuring too much stress, too little sleep. But these are just two of many, many that are out there over the past maybe 2 to 3 years. It's been a major, major trend. And I think this is a really good way that brands can take these sleep products to another level. They can put them on a more premium price point. They can actually claim that something more scientific is being done than just soothing you slightly more into sleep. There's real proof here that these kind of things work.
I also think it's absolutely fascinating that we've been able to gamify sleep. So I've read that there's a lot more interest in metric-oriented health measurements, so tracking things, seeing a score. A lot of these wellness apps like Whoop 4.0 sleep tracker, which tracks your sleep, and there's digital sleep masks. And yeah, I think I was reading that there's a competitive element almost where people are uploading their scores, how well they slept. And as someone who loves video games and sort of particularly role-playing games where you see little numbers go up, it triggers such a hit of dopamine for some reason. That still goes for sleep and this sort of health orientated tracking measurements. You are feeling better in the long term, as you mentioned. I will say though, I think that maybe the influencers who are promoting, sleep and talking about this, they might have more time and money to invest into these kind of products versus maybe a person who works 2 jobs or someone who has a full family or lives in shared accommodations where sleep might not be the luxury that, sleep's a luxury then for them.
I mean, there's that famous saying is that money is time or time is money. And I feel like, in this wellness environment, sleep is time. We're talking about that half hour shaved off for which you drop to sleep. And you think, 9 hours. I was actually quite shocked by 9 hours sleep. I thought we were talking, I always heard the magic number was 8.
Yeah, 7 to 9 hours.
7 to 9.
Yeah.
I mean, 9 hours sleep would be fantastic. But you think, okay, you have to get to sleep at a certain time, wake up at a certain time. You probably miss out on maybe the hour to do, I don't know, your yoga or your running. So you're like, okay, fit that in at the end of the working day. But then something else has got to give then. You're probably, I don't know, picking up children, shopping for food, cooking. You might even, this is presuming a 9 to 5 as well. Lots of people will work a little bit later as well. And then you're looking at, okay, fit the exercise in, have a spot to eat, not too close to bedtime because then you won't get to sleep again. And it is this, it's this, if you use your time, if you're using your time to sleep, what else gives?
True, but what else gives, yes. And I understand the point about time is money, and perhaps there's socioeconomic disparity, and perhaps these gadgets are a luxury that perhaps never everyone can afford, but actually they are worth perhaps investing in. Because I was ahead of this, I was reading at different studies, and apparently sleep aids, specifically melatonin, and prescriptions for that is on the rise. Like it's increased 170% in young people in England alone.
Melatonin works. That is my red eye hack, incidentally.
Really?
If I go to New York, it's just buying melatonin. It works.
But I understand, when you say young people, this is like Gen Z, so this is people in their 20s. That's very young to be using sleep aids.
Be worried about sleeping. Yeah.
100%.
I think also to your point, like it's, we can't, there's going to be so many ifs and buts, and we don't know, like everyone's situation is different. But one thing we can all agree, which I think the sleep industry should tackle, is everyone has waves of sleep. Whether you have the time or not the time, you're never going to have 7-8 hours every day. You could be taking an early morning flight. You could be having just bad sleep. Yeah. There could be building work. There'd be so many things. So I think the industry should just try to tackle the fact that it's okay. Like we all have disturbed and unbalanced sleep. How do we try to help when you have those moments? Whatever your reasons are, that's up to you. That's not for us to diagnose or decide. But we can all benefit. And I think that's where you said like exactly that, like an Oura ring or Whoop. That's one side. If you're someone that needs accountability, measurability, gamification, you can do it. You can also do the same thing with other ways, like, and that can be judged by your, what you can afford. For example, like you could have your app that tells you, here are your 3 friends, and you invite them to your Oura circle, or you become Whoop buddies, and you can see what they're doing. Or you can just say to your friend, like what I did to my friend ages ago with screen time. I just said at the end of the week, send me a screenshot of your screen time. I'll send you mine.
Shame each other.
And whoever's got the lowest screen time has to give the other person 20 euros. And it was such a fun thing in Paris when I was doing this, because every Sunday I was like, oh my God, I was like a check-in, like, what are you on? And I was like, purposefully just not going on my phone on Sunday to make sure I would not paying 20 euros. And it was like a bank. So obviously like 1 week he won, the 1 week I won, but you can do it without spending, or having an app, right?
Yeah. Just out of interest, did reducing your screen time that way help you with your sleep?
You know what? Definitely, 100%. Because there's a whole trend on TikTok, and I think a lot of people will relate. Like, there's 2 things people talk about today. There's your social bedtime, and I think that's where the Gen Zs are at, where it's like, I'm at home at 9, meaning I don't want to see anyone, I don't want to speak to anyone. I'm turning off my phone in terms of texting people. However, I'll be on my phone for another 3 hours on TikTok scrolling. That is like my time. So then they still are sleeping at 1 or 2 a.m., but they're just not like to the public, right?
Yes.
And that's a big, big thing right now. I think we all can do that. Like you sometimes you need that half an hour just to like chill before you actually turn off. So that is something where it helped me, because I was doing a lot of that for so long. And then I was like, well, I can't be on my phone. So it helped me maybe go on a paper and a book. But honestly, after a while, that doesn't stimulate you, so just fall asleep. Compared to a white light TikTok videos where it keep you entertained, and you realize, wait, this is 2-3 hours later. Yeah, I should be sleeping. So yeah, it did help.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading about a new trend for dopamine detoxing, which is exactly what you're saying then. And I think it feeds into the sleep quality aspect as well, steering clear of these activities that spike dopamine levels. So yeah, what you're getting is trends within trends, essentially, that are helping feed into this, good sleep health, essentially.
I think the biggest thing is just surround yourself with people that are in a similar kind of awareness. So that accountability is healthy and it becomes a community. I think that's really critical because we all deal with it, but we can all help each other by having healthy boundaries and healthy practices that we learn from each other. And then the products and the apps are secondary for me. That's really, it's like kind of the gym, you know, like you can have like products, but
and everything else.
What makes you want to go and
Community,
community.
support.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think from a business perspective and an MPD perspective, there's definitely money to be made here and there's definitely white space. It's gone from like, you've got sleep tourism where luxury hotels are offering you like windowless rooms and pillow menus and
pillow
everything.
menus is a big thing.
And everything else in between. And so from that part of society, and then eventually what we're seeing down is it's trickling down, it's going to go into mass. So this democratization of sleep wellness products, I think, is going to be the next step. And as long as it's like what you say, Akash, it gives people the options, like whatever products, if they need a product, and then perhaps it's better for them to use that than a prescription.
I think the issue is going to be, I think price point is critical but I think we need a little bit of legitimacy because you see a lot, let's be honest, gummies, right?
Yeah.
Ashwagandha gummies, all these gummies that are meant to make you better sleep. And then you saw this trend with like, I think Kardashian's Lemmy gummies that some people had positive and negative on TikTok and it went too viral. But then I've had some sleep, like calming gummies that I've just been given. And like my friends taking it and they're like, yeah, it's amazing. I slept straight away. And I was like, I don't feel anything. And sometimes they are very perceptional or adaptogenic. You don't really know. So I think the industry, as the opportunity is going to rise, I think we need a bit of accountability with all the stakeholders to make sure you're not just like, just watering down the statements and not having good products, because that's the problem with something like that. If someone tries like a gummy and it doesn't work for them, they're never going to try another one. I think we need to have a bit of legislations and clinicals and proof.
Definitely. It's this is a huge thing about this industry is everything that you claim has to be provable.
Yeah.
And it's the same for Sleep Beauty as it would be for, gets rid of or reduces the appearance of growth rate. It's you're making a claim, you have to back that claim up. And I think there are exciting ways of maybe working out ways to prove that claim. And I think the onus is on, those third-party testing companies to come up with some really great ideas here, on brands to do that themselves.
To invest on it.
So I look forward to seeing how people really validate that.
Speaking of alternatives, Akash, do you want to take us with your topic?
Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting point to be talking about it because this is a topic that's been around for 4,000 years. But there's, from my culture, being South Asian, being Indian of origin, Ayurveda has been a big thing. And for those who don't know, Ayurveda is the science or knowledge of life. It's a 4,000-year-old science, all about kind of healing from, as natural as you can go, but it's not just about the product. I think that's a misconception. People think it's just about like an ingredient but it's also about a feeling. For example, the perfect kind of sentence to just explain Ayurveda in a nutshell would be, my grandma used to never say, massage this oil. She used to say words like sneha, which means lovingly put on the oil onto your skin. In English, we don't have a word that is an emotion with a verb, right? So this is the kind of intentional and slowing down, and it's not a fast-paced thing. This is not dissimilar to other traditional and kind of cultural practices. For example, TEM, traditional Arabic Islamic medicine, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. And there's so many similarities between these. A perfect example is TCM has cupping that we all know. When I was in Qatar, I had a TEM, traditional Arabic Islamic medicine experience that was blood cupping. So it's the exact same thing as cupping, but before that, they put a little incision. So there's a lot of blood that comes out, but it's like blood, dark clots, and it just completely detoxifies. And you'll and your backache will be gone for like 6 months. This is a claim, but I don't know, you have to feel it. But this is like the power of all the things that these sciences or ways of life have been teaching have been passed down by generations. They didn't have clinicals, It was, my grandma told me it was good. That's the best no matter what. But still, and we've, Fable and Main were the first Ayurvedic brand to launch a Sephora. And I can tell you, it's been a journey, to try to just educate what is Ayurveda. I've had conversations with retailers where they've told me, remove it. And the minute the big article comes out that the future is Ayurveda, they're like, oh, hey, can you put it back? But it's my job to educate, but at the same time, it's nothing new. This has been out older than all of us. And I think there's a surge of like trying to go back to cultural roots, and what's in the past is sometimes the best for the future. But of course, we've got to modernize it. We've got to advance it. So one thing I say with Fable and Main, people say, oh, you're an Ayurvedic brand, and or they have questions, or you're not doing that. It's not as Ayurvedic as this. Look, my point is we want to be part of the journey. So in 100 years' time or 1,000 years' time, someone will say, Ayurveda to me is also Fable and Main. They're part of that growth because 500 years ago, someone added something to it.
Yeah.
So it's a journey, and it's like a baton. So I think that's something I want to talk about a bit. And I thought, for you guys as well, I've obviously had this cultural upbringing but do you have something similar that's found you connecting to beauty a bit deeper from your childhood?
For me, my grandmother, I feel like this is going to bring up a lot of grandmothers, right?
Grandmothers.
And often it is. It's always one extra generation above.
Lavender. So my grandmother will, she's still alive. She is 95 years old, but she will, she used to always have lavender fragrance waters. She taught me how to use lavender from the garden and sew it into pouches so that I could put it in my drawer. So my clothing smelled of lavender. So that is what I associate with her. I'd love to say that there's some sort of fantastic, grass style fields of lavender, like in Norfolk as well. But I don't have anything like that to ground me. But I feel like that is very traditionally English country garden. It is something that I associate with my grandmother, with my heritage. So probably the scent of lavender is the closest I've come to that. But I can't claim it's that grounding of 4,000 years of known use and knowledge and the accumulation of that over time. Yeah.
But the feeling, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Because some can be 1,000, 4,000 or created today. And that obviously comes down to history of countries and history of, how things have happened. But the one thing that Fable and Main story can connect to your story is emotion of connecting to an ingredient, ritual with the ingredient, it wasn't fast, it was slow, it was real,
sewing was not
authentic.
Fast.
No.
I was about 7.
and it was, and that kind of feeling is what I think beauty is heading towards. It's always been. I think it's just something that we're getting a bit tired of so much brands that we're feeling beautiful. But I'm like, I first see packaging, I first see good name, or I first see a celebrity, or I first see that. Yeah. But ultimately, am I connected? And usually you're not connected because there's nothing from your childhood or your early days that connect to it that's intrinsically you.
Yeah. The lavender is I think it's definitely an English thing. It's something I associate with my mum and my grandmother, on my pillow, sewing into my head mattress and things like that to help you sleep, ironically, back onto a previous discussion.
But actually, it's kind of connected. You talk about that slow down. We're in a very fast-paced environment. And both of those things seem to work kind of really nicely into one another.
But the weekly bath routine, learning how to plait your hair, those kind of rituals.
And exactly that. So you mentioned weekly routine. And then I always, because I'm saying the same to me, for the last 20 years, I was like, I haven't done a weekly routines or this and that, but I did it growing up. So it got me thinking, gosh, we need to start bringing these routines in that are not the usual. I'm not talking showering and, brushing your teeth. I'm talking something for you that's your own ritual. And I'm asked you both of you, when's the last time you sewed the lavender and did?
Last time years and years ago.
Same. For me, this is childhood. Don't get me wrong, I will get out the sewing kit every now and then, but mostly to put a button back on. It's not. It's essentials rather than something for me.
But if a beauty brand came out tomorrow and there was a PR event and it was like that experience, wouldn't you be like, whoa?
I would love that. I was like, funny.
You've heard it here, by the way.
Exactly.
Exactly. But I was in Provence last summer, and so famous for their lavender, and so there was a woman I met just in a tiny little shop, and she had her bunches of lavender and she put them in a tiny pillow and she embroidered your name on them, and so I got one for me and one for my other half, and so now so it had that same feeling, and you just squeeze the pillows and the lavender smells.
And that's I think that's what I wanted to do is for now, it's a lot on the South Asian because that's our story and narrative, and there's a lot to do there. But I also try as much as possible to ask my friends in all different cultures and growing and backgrounds, what are those stories? And like, even now I'm asking you because I'm taking it in. I'm
It's
bottling
universal,
it up.
isn't it? That
and
feeling.
That's what
Yeah.
you want to bring into your brand in any vertical, because that's real connection and community, is when you're listening to what people really want. Or maybe they don't know they want, but they will really connect to.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a big thing that I think most beauty brands specifically should really think about, is don't spend too long on your business plan and this and the products. That will come, and that's all table stakes today. Spend your time at the beginning on your why, on your purpose, on your mission. That, for me, takes so much longer, and there's no timeline. It could be, you could figure it out in a month. It could take you a year. That's very critical, I think, because I think that's what I'm noticing when I see every launch today. I'm like, they didn't spend time on their why. And if I ask them in one line, what's your why? They'll answer. And I have a podcast. I've interviewed many. And so many times I'm like, next question. You know, because I really think it's like boardroom meeting created brands.
Tick box kind of.
Tick box brand. And they even say their story enough where they believe it. But I'm like, but come on. That's not your story.
Bones, do you believe that?
Yeah, that is not your story.
I have had a couple of consultations with Ayurvedic practitioners, and they're both brands. The practitioners are based in India, so it was via Zoom, and so they couldn't see me in person, but it was lots of forms to fill in, and it was lots of chats over the video calls and everything like that. But what I was amazed when they finally gave me my results and what lifestyle advice and beauty tips and things I should have was actually how much that reflected and was just another word for saying what medical conditions I have from a Western perspective. And I was like, how do you know me? Like, this is so bizarre. And it's just the accuracy of it. And I haven't implemented anything I've learned yet, but I want to. But I love this idea with Ayurveda, is that it's just for you, and it's
bespoke, it's personalized. And I think that's where like the trends of the future for me would be finding those maybe those sciences or those holistic medicines or ways of life, bring them back into a modern way in all different cultures, but also things like horoscope, DNA. There's so much truth in this realm that's so blurry, but it's so interesting. Like I was even looking at, when you look, we have Vedic astrology in India, and by knowing the time of your birth and your star's alignment, you will get
the time of day of the birth.
So time and date. So not even you have to know the exact, say 6:03 a.m. on this January this, and this like Vedic astrology will like map out your exact stars on that day. With that, imagine you get your DNA, you get this. I can probably tell you what products are best for your skin. And this is something like, my father's actually working on a little bit of this right now, and because he's really visionary on this kind of like holistic meets science. But I do think there's a lot in there. And I think a lot of people will benefit from that kind of personalization, but also it doesn't have to make sense. It just will make sense, because it's always going to be gray.
Yeah.
But that's exciting for me, is how that goes further in. We'll obviously have the AI and the tech and that kind of side, which is another big piece, and how you marry that. But some of the biggest ways are from these old ways of, dealing with things.
Yeah.
It's so true. I went to Kama Ayurveda's new store in Notting Hill, and
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
The hand-painted mural. Oh my gosh, it was a sight
Flower. Yes.
sight to behold. But yeah, I spoke with one of the staff there, and just in a few questions, they were able to identify exactly, am I pronouncing this right, the dosha?
Yep. Vata, Pitta, Kapha.
Yeah, what I was and exactly what products would be good. And it's like, my God, you know my skin in just a few questions. It was incredible.
And these are actually just terms that kind of simplify common things. Like, for example, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, you can find your doshic type. The idea of this premise, for anyone listening who's curious, and you can do a quiz online, just find it out, is you want to live in a tri-doshic balance. So you want to live in harmony. So if you're, say, Pitta and fiery type, you need a bit more Vata and Kapha in your life. So how would you do that? You would have more foods that are diagnosed as Vata or Kapha to balance it. So you don't have hot, spicy food if you're a fiery person, right? It's a simplified version. At the same time, you've got to think about seasons. So we are now entering, Kapha season, so spring season. So you move from a very heavy winter season where you have heavy soups, potato soups, to lighter soups. You're still having soups because it's still a little bit brisk and chilly. But then if you are a kapha type, maybe you don't have too much kapha food. So it's so, you can go down this rabbit hole, but it's so fascinating. Yeah. But ultimately, these words seem very jarring, vata, pitta, kapha, dosha, but actually, what I'm saying it without those words makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a risk though of like going too far, oversimplifying too much, almost to whitewashing, because there's going to be money men who think, oh, I can make lots and lots of money within this category?
I think there will be. I think ultimately most consumers can sense when something is right and wrong. And often if it is whitewash or this and that, you tend to not see the results and then you're not going to go back. And I think the most important thing is retention and loyalty, not really acquisition. Everyone can acquire something and that I'm not worried about. How will they stick? But I do think we need to get a bit more better as a consumer at asking the right questions, doing your homework, just kind of testing before you try.
And also the correct usage as well. I mean, to bring it back to your grandmother, this applying intentionally with love. I mean, how do you communicate this to your customers? How do you say, this is the right way to do this?
You know, there's different ways. We first do the 3-second ephemeral way. So in every touch point is the emotion put into our choice of models, our language, our verbiage. There's ways we do it without realizing it. Like if you look at our packaging, you'll feel an emotion and it's all intentionally done. It wasn't like a quick decision. Every placement of leaf and every color choice does make you think about emotion or feeling. I think also you have to like have a guideline brand book that holds you accountable to making sure when we do something. So one thing I do as a CEO, I have a virtual boardroom meeting with every decision I do in the day. So let's say I'm about to do a packaging decision. I think about, here is a person sitting here that's saying, are you talking, like my nanny, my grandma, are you doing the Ayurveda, the ritual, the love? Yes, nanny, I'm listening to you. I'm going to make sure, oh, I have Sephora in the other boardroom seat. Yes, you want commercial. No one's going to understand Ayurveda. Okay, I listen to you. And then I make the decision to balance it all. I can't do it all. But that virtual boardroom meeting makes me really make sure I'm doing exactly as you said. I think I invite everyone to do that in anything in life, is talk to yourself a bit more and talk to those stakeholders in your head.
I think having your grandmother on your shoulders is really good.
It's always nice. Yeah, she's always like, do it. And I'm like, no, stop it, stop talking.
Alessandro, do you want to round us off?
Yes. So talking about the influx of athlete-founded beauty brands, which have come out in the last 4 months. It sort of all kind of started this year when LeBron James launched his own male grooming line. And it was based around his TV series, The Shop, where he sits down in barbershops and talks with people and has guests on. But then Dwayne Johnson came out with a beauty brand, Papatui, incredible. And it actually, I really stood out for me because it was... It had a really strong focus on speaking with men and reducing shame. And also it was on theme. It was a tattoo brand. It was body care. And he's this super buff guy who has tattoos. So it was brilliant. And then, of course, in April, Win Beauty came out from Serena Williams. And this is her second beauty venture because she launched a Will Perform, which was a wellness brand in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, within 4 months, we've had 3 athlete-founded beauty brands. And there are a couple of reasons for this. The first being that some argue that actually these athletes are now waking up to the influence they now have. They are celebrities, really, especially Serena Williams. She has an incredible history as a tennis player.
Amazing role models as well.
100%.
And her sister had some proven success with her beauty brand, Venus. So, yeah.
And coinciding with this particularly is the increased appreciation and recognition of women's sport, which beauty brands were very quick to pick up on last year, particularly around the Women's Euros, the Women's World Cup. There's a lot of investment going in. So it was almost like the perfect storm, the perfect combination to have suddenly more athlete-founded brands coming out. And I guess really I want to open up to you guys, like, what do you think of what's come out so far? And are they sort of offering something that's different to what's already out there? And is there space for, this new wave of brand founders?
I will personally say, and it's probably a bit harsh as well, because I think you box it in a celebrity bucket, right? So whenever a new celebrity brand launches, I'm like, all right, another one.
Another one, yeah.
I will say I have a personal, other side of the coin, which I do think is an important thing to mention is, I have this podcast, 250 founders. I've had no celebrities pretty much join. And so many have asked. And it's all the same thing. It's like, well, they have 2 press days and they can't really, dedicate the time. And then it's important to mention, like, why is it being so hard to get any celebrity on? But if they're coming on as a founder and this is their baby, and I'm not saying
want to talk about it with as many people as possible.
And I have some interesting ways to connect to get to there. If I even have celebrities that even I've booked in and they cancel last minute, it's fine. But it is statistically quite interesting how not many have come, which has made me think, if you're creating a brand, this is your baby. If every other founder has had the time to give throughout the 365 days, 1 hour to talk about the brand to one of the few leading beauty podcasts, we've got millions of streams, it's not a small one. Why can't they make the time? So I do have a little bit of a little bit of a grudge against the fact that I do feel it's quite devaluing to a lot of founders who work so hard, but then they've given only 4 press days a year to work on the brand. I'm not saying that's fully true, but there are many that do. Now, unfortunately, that gets boxed up because there are some celebrity founders that are very hands-on and are putting in all the time. And that's where I think it gets a bit unfair, right? I will say, personally, I think a lot of the time it is a case of someone close to them says, hey, we can do the operations. We just need to, either we have the brand ready made, we'll give you 20% equity and you can be a co-founder, or you can invest in it and be a co-founder. And they're obviously seeing it as one of the many channels to make some money. And that's why when many of these fail, it's like, well, it's off my Instagram bio, it doesn't matter. So I do have a little bit of that. So when I was looking at these 3 brands specifically, I didn't feel any connection. I thought the closest was Papa 2. I found something. I saw, he put in the effort to do some press circuits, but then I always go back a month and a half later and I'm like, oh, when was the last post? When was the last? And I think I just know so many founders that I'm like, I'd rather support those brands, but it's a very personal thing.
I agree with you on that. It's something at Cosmetics Business, when we interview a lot of founders, and celebrity founders are very reluctant to talk to us. We're a business title, so we're going to be asking them the ins and outs of how their business operates. That does not fly with us, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. So what inevitably happens, we have interviews with their CEO, their commercial partners, and they're far more interesting anyway, in terms of interviewing about the brand. So that happens quite often. I think from the sports perspective, it's the longevity of it. Is it going to be a quick buck for them to make so they can make sure they get a good retirement? Because unfortunately, a sports career does not last until old age.
Very true.
So it gives them a comfort blanket about that. I think what is interesting is increasingly close relationship between sports industry as a whole and beauty industry as a whole. So for example, like Charlotte Tilbury sponsoring Formula One, or La Roche-Posay and pickleball. And so really investing in the particularly female sports market, I think that is where the beauty industry will head in terms of relationships with sports.
Yeah, I think, was it Pooch sponsored the America's Cup, the sailing? And we've also had LVMH is very much one of the key sponsors for, I don't know if sponsors is the right word, but it's very much involved with the Paris Olympics.
Sephora too.
And
Miel, the Rosemary hair care oil specialist, they've sponsored basketball player Angela Reese.
Yes.
She's turned out to be a very good investment for them.
And well, she has gone from, I think, collegiate basketball. I'm saying this like I know anything about basketball, right? But she's gone from collegiate basketball, and I think she's joined the women's WNBA. Yes, I got it right. Sorry, guys, acronyms are not my specialty. But yeah, so she has gone pro essentially.
And she made 300,000 and media value for them in 6 months.
Wow, that's quite something.
But talking about the sports celebrities that are creating beauty brands, do you also feel there's a missed opportunity or an expected opportunity for them to create for their potential target audience, which could be athletes? Because I didn't feel most of those brands were targeted for. Maybe Win, I don't know much, but
Win probably a little bit more. So it's apparently the formulations are supposed to stick around throughout. You get a bit sweaty and your body temperature goes up and it doesn't all seep off your face. But I think probably the biggest links are more visual. So for example, green is almost kind of a tennis ball-y green and stuff like that. So there are nods to obviously Serena's background, and the colours are all very kind of bright. They also work really well with darker skin tones as well. So you look at it and you think, oh, that's a bit of Serena. But I don't know whether you think of it as being specifically designed for athletes. And to be honest, you look at some areas and you think, I feel like there is a gap here.
Yeah, I think
like cycling. Look at the amount of money that people put into cycling accessories, how much money people spend if they're into cycling on products to help them cycle faster, better. It's a tough sport. You get a lot of chafing, you get tired, you get muscle ache. Surely there's like potential for a nice little kind of link in there with some cyclists.
True, but is that a bit too niche though? And so from an investor perspective?
And that's a
Probably.
problem. It might be, but it could be a category to start, investing in. I don't know.
My concern is that if more athletes follow in the route of Dwayne Johnson, Serena Williams, it's more like celebrity-founded brands. I'm worried that it might overshadow the actual scrappy players trying to really target an athlete market properly. So, for example, a brand I'm quite excited to see coming out later this year is Medalist Skin. So that's founded by Anne Reagan Kearns, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So a former swimmer, athlete, and a Olympic rugby player, Ilona Mehta. And to create their brand, they sat down with initially 300 athletes to really talk with them and understand what they want from a beauty brand, a body care brand that targets athletes, that works while training, that allows them to perform. And I just hope that these guys aren't overshadowed by the bigger players potentially trying to make a quick buck.
And also where it makes sense, because I mean, it's probably a bit like, I mean, you can compare it to like a celebrity brand and say, well, how does an actress have the efficacy of this? Or maybe they are trying a lot of makeup products in their chair or whatever. But like, I know personally, if Serena Williams launched a unisex deodorant brand, I'll be super interested because I know she would have, she would know what she wants. And so if it's a foundation, I would be a little bit skeptical to be like, would I prefer this or a makeup artist like Mario or someone who's worked with foundations for their whole career? So I think that's where the conversation gets a bit more interesting. But I think we all know we can say this is this and it makes sense, but it is a play to make money usually, like any business should be. My worry is eventually the consumer will lose out, because if you're not doing it for the longevity, for a legacy, for the right reasons, there will be a moment, whether it's a year, 3 years, 5 years time, it doesn't serve your purpose, you're too busy, you're doing 100 other things, and you're going to start not prioritizing it, not re-engineering the formulas, not trying to offer the best in sustainability, and eventually it will either sell or close down, and then and that's the worst thing for the industry. More waste, more product, more noise. I rather I know the barriers to entry are lower for brands, but if you are going to create a beauty brand today, try to think of it like this is your legacy, not a 3-day, max a year PR thing. That's my thing on it. Yeah.
This is Cosmetics Business Picks, the section of the podcast where we share our favourite products of the past month, and in no particular order. Julia, do you want to go first?
So on the theme of Ayurveda, I've trialled new Sunrise Glow Serum from Indie Wild. It's a UK brand whose USP is, I hope I'm going to say this right, Ayurvedistry, which is kind of their term for Ayurveda meets chemistry. It's a bit of a mouthful. The serum contains superfoods like turmeric and ashwagandha, in addition to a host of other actives, most notably 15% vitamin C, which is a really high load. So I've not been using it that long. So this is going to be one of those times where time will tell. But overall, it is a really lovely product. And the packaging is also very cool. It's kind of peach fuzz, Pantone colour of the year inspired. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for me.
Very nice. Alessandro?
Guys, please don't judge me, but I've been using the Shrek Bath collection from Lush. And it's actually really, really nice. Actually, yeah. I had a bath bomb shaped like donkey. I used it and it actually
What did it smell like?
waffles.
Did it just make your bath grey?
It didn't turn it grey. It was actually like beautiful, like this celestial blue. And I was just like, it smelled like waffles. And I was like, I feel really relaxed. It's like, this is a Shrek donkey bath bomb.
Lovely.
But then also I've been using the Fiona shower gel.
Yeah, I saw that. It looked cool.
Yeah, it don't smell it directly from the bottle because it's kind of this like nuclear explosion of like fresh floral, like appley smells. But once it's on, it's actually really nice and smoothing. And I've got a lot more to try, but it's got a thumbs up from me. It's way nicer than you would think a Shrek themed like scent collection would be.
It would be a bit swampy.
Yeah,
right?
a bit mossy. Okay, I'm going to jump in. I managed to get my hands on Rita Ora's new hair care line, which was created with Vida Glow's founder, Anna Leahy, called Type B. It's actually very good. They've come out with a overnight serum, shampoo, conditioner, and a 3-minute mask. I've been using the serum and the shampoo and the conditioner so far. It's designed for all hair types, so I find it very lightweight, easy to wash off, but my hair is not so frizzy, which I quite like. Well, I do like very much. The overnight serum they're very honest about the full bottle. They say you should just start seeing like baby hairs come through. When I was chatting to Anna, she was like, you need to use it every day. I liked that no-nonsense approach. So I was pleasantly surprised.
The celebrity thing done right.
Yeah, I mean, with like Anna's credibility as Vita Glow, I was expecting it to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Akash, do you want to?
For me, I always go by my favorite founders first, and then like I always will love anything they create. So Sarah Lee and Christine Chang, Glow Recipe Girls, they're just amazing, and they've recently released an SPF like based on their viral the Dewdrop, sorry. So it's like the Watermelon Glow range, and it's like a sunscreen stick, and I love it. The Shiseido one, Indie Wild had one, and well, not a stick, but they live tinted very quick. So I have a few that I tried, but now I'm hooked to the Glow Recipe one.
They feel like they have the Midas touch.
Yeah, and they're just amazing people. So always support Glow Recipe because the founders are the best.
That's all now for the Cosmetics Business Podcast. Thank you, listeners, for joining us, and thank you, Akash, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate, like, leave a comment, share, and subscribe to the Cosmetics Business Podcast so you never miss an episode. And join us next time as we tackle the biggest stories and trends in beauty. And in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to cosmeticsbusiness.com for all of your latest beauty industry news and analysis. Bye.
Bye.